Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the R Squared podcast. My name is Rajat,
And my name is Rishi, or you can call me Rishman12, whatever.
and we've got a guest today.
Let's go!
We have Neal Amratia, who is a systems engineer at a company that does data analysis for sports. Neil, thanks for coming on. How are you feeling?
Hello, hello. I feel great, Rishi. That was a really nice energy from you.
Thank you. I hope you feel
Always,
good as well.
of course, of course.
Yeah,
Great to
great.
be here.
Nice.
Neil, you, as I said, you're a systems engineer and you work in data analysis for sports. I think, and Rishi, I don't know if you agree with me. I think Neil has one of the coolest jobs of our friend group. I mean, this guy does
This
some.
guy's job is so
Yeah.
cool. It takes you like at least a week to understand detail about what he's doing. Like, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, yeah, which is why we have brought him on to. I mean, we don't have a week, but we'll try and compress it in in less than an hour. Uh, but yeah, Neil, can you tell us a bit more about the work you do? And
Sure, of course. It's always one of these questions when someone asks you, like, what do you do? You have to think for like 20 minutes. What do I actually do? But put it in layman's terms, I work for a company that does data analysis in sports, aiding player well-being, helping out sports scientists at professional sports clubs understand more about the players and their physicality. And this is done through some technology using military grade equipment. Have
God
you
damn.
ever heard of LiDAR?
yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, this kind of technology that's used in autonomous vehicles to map out an environment and understand where the car's going, where a tree is, or if there's a person in front of it to basically not hit them. So using those lidars, we can map out the pitch, for example, in football, and understand where objects are. In this case, objects are the players, and using cameras can identify who these players are, and that's how we use that data or collect data to understand how the players are kind of moving around, how much energy they're putting into the game. Again, I work on the data capture side. There's a whole branch that does the processing of this data, but they would probably know a lot more on what sort of metrics are generated. But yeah, I am a systems engineer and work on the data capture branch, which includes all building of the hardware, calibrating the hardware, setting it up, and deployment of all this kit in different stadiums, different arenas, and also more recently, we've been working on a little bit on the software deployment side of things.
And could you specify what that data is? It
It's purely position, and using that data, you can calculate different sort of metrics. Like, for example, running in a straight line, and all of a sudden the player has to change direction, or COD, in short, change of direction. Rishi is excited about that. COD means
Yeah,
something
bro,
very
that's
different for
honestly,
him.
that's pretty cool. I hope to experience this technology myself, to be honest. I got a question for you, actually. Sorry to interrupt, but
Go for it.
are you using AI? Because like that's the
Yes,
craze of the
it's a
world
good
right now, right?
question.
So like, what's the integration like? If you can tell us, what's up?
We don't use AI in the way the world knows AI today.
That's very very sad. But yes,
AI
carry on.
is completely has completely changed meaning. Uh, if you ask the average person what AI is today, they would immediately go into ChatGPT and everything NVIDIA is doing. But we also use NVIDIA, but just not in the same way. Uh, yeah, we basically use AI to detect whether or not a player is a player or not, using different models that are developed and generated in house. Um, this sort of stuff helps the system understand whether or not that object is worth tracking.
Ah, okay, okay, interesting, interesting. And you mentioned a bit about the equipment in terms of military grade, and you mentioned LiDAR as well.
hmm
Is there anything else that you're using?
So LiDAR is essentially used very commonly now in autonomous vehicles, but also in the military space for things like identifying objects outside boundaries where, uh, let's say, militaries don't want people around.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I think it's used for, but it also can be used in the nuclear space, understanding or mapping out the internals of a nuclear plant where you don't actually want someone going in there.
Let me ask you,
So
Mm.
like from your point of view, what could this technology be used for that is not being currently used for, but it could really assist with it? You know, like what according to you,
Wow,
if
that's a
you
good
have
oh,
question.
an idea on that, something just out of the box.
that is a good question. Uh, Honestly, something I cannot answer at the moment, but I do know of lots of uses that's currently being used for a lot in the geography world as well. I think they use it to map out different topographies and understand uh, the areas that people may want to build on top of without actually having to map it out themselves manually. So another use is in iPhones, actually, from the iPhone 12 Pro, and every Pro since has a LiDAR scanner on the back of it. This is to help identify depth when taking photos to get better portrait mode shots.
Now that is interesting.
Also,
I did not know that. That's good to
Yeah,
know.
same,
yeah,
same.
also they do have a few apps on the App Store that allow you to use your iPhone as a 3D scanner, so you can actually map out a 3D object using that. And this essentially, yeah, you have a CAD model of, or rather just a 3D object of an item that you may want to use in AR. AR is a different term, like VR,
Sorry,
augmented
let me
reality.
let me interrupt you just 1 second. The reason being,
Yeah,
so if you do this again off topic, but like for the iPhones, if you do scan the 3D concept of a room, for example, does that really
yeah,
can that help interior designers then to interior design?
very much so. I guess more also in prototyping. Uh, they 3D scanners do exist. They are very expensive, and uh, the average person won't really have this. But let's say you are in, you want to go to IKEA to buy furniture for your house, but before you do, you need to know what the dimensions of your room are. You can use a tape measure, which does work, but with the LiDAR scanner on the iPhone, fun fact, the Measure app on the iPhone also uses a LiDAR scanner, so you can actually point around the room and click on points, point to point, and get the exact distance. It is
Wow,
very accurate. LiDAR is, um, if calibrated well, is really good in terms of accuracy. You can
nice.
go to IKEA and get 3D
A bed
models, and
and the
yeah,
3D
literally
models.
put it in the app. Um,
And then in terms of technology, because you've been in this role or in this company for how many, like 3 years now?
4 years now.
4 years,
Yeah.
yeah. So how are you seeing the technology and your role develop over?
It's interesting. So obviously we use LiDAR a lot. When I first joined, we had a few LiDARs which were in today's world not the best resolution, but back then were still pretty decent. This is all in a span of like 4 years. Like technology is evolving really fast. And back then it used to cost a lot of money, but very quickly the cost of the LiDARs and the quality of LiDARs, uh, quality is going up while costs are going down. So I guess there's a
Are you
lot of
able to
demand.
tell us? Are you able to tell us the average cost, if that's
Um,
in the scope?
I'd say yeah, like the LiDARs that we used to use initially when I joined might have cost about £30,000 per
Wow.
unit. Uh, Today they're not being made anymore, but just before they got um, what's the word? They got
Dumped.
out of dumped out of commission. They used to cost maybe 3,000. So yeah,
Oh my god, that is wow, that is a
Wait, so
massive
but
increase.
also
why aren't they being made anymore?
I think they're not the highest resolution. They got bought
Uh,
over by another company, so the other company has their own range of this of similar products. So they don't want to use the competitors, although they own them now. That's my assumption, but
right.
yeah, they stopped making them. In terms of technology, I've seen over the 4 years that there's a lot more LiDARs out there. I'm guessing because there's a lot more demand in the motor industry for them. And in terms of my role, I've also, I guess, seen a lot of changes, especially because in the beginning we weren't dealing with a lot of customers. There was a lot of R&D, a lot of testing. Although that still happens, doing that while we have a lot more customers as well. So very different aspect, especially in a startup. Like you learn a lot, you have a lot of responsibilities, and grow very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah. Now you mentioned customers. I know you can't go into detail, but do you want to give a brief overview of, yeah, some of your customers?
Yeah, so we go for the creme de la creme, the top teams in the world. We work with Premier League teams and
Hmm.
very recently the Saudi Pro League teams. As you
See,
all probably know, exactly.
Sorry.
You probably know how football has become very big. I'm sure it was always big, but a lot more
Yeah.
well known around the world in the Saudi Pro League. Also, primarily our what we do is in football, but moving into other sports as well. So doing a lot of research, development, and working in sports like basketball, ice hockey, baseball, and yeah.
let me ask you. So, like, when you get the analysis from your equipment about, say, a certain player,
Hmm.
how or is that affecting that current player? How is he be able to better himself? So, like, how is it going to affect the end game? End of the day.
Yeah, I mean, good question. Basically, players are paid to play. They don't care about, well, they obviously care about their well-being, but
Money, 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 money,
they
money.
they're paid really well. They have people who look after them very well. Now, these sports scientists or coaches will are the people who are interested in their data, and they will tailor certain routines for the players based on how they're performing, especially if they're coming back from injury or if they have a risk of carrying an injury, which we can potentially flag to them. They would then help them avoid it, mitigate it, and uh, get themselves recovered, like in rehab. So this
God damn,
information
man.
helps them get information on how the players are doing in games and even in training.
You heard that. If you're a competitive team, use this man's technology. You're going to save yourself time, effort, and money, and you're going to get better. So let me ask you: are you currently doing this? Would you actually do this for athletes? Runners, for example.
It's a very different space because a lot of what runners do is not the same as what sports play, like football players do. For example, if you think about marathon runners or sprinters, they're running in a straight line most of the time, and they have very little change of direction. What our technology really helps with is when players are playing football, for example, they're changing direction quite a lot. So we using that data, we can analyze trends in like the degrees in terms of the angle, how much they're turning, how fast they're making that turn, and we can translate that into like the amount of force they're using to uh, do that turn. Um, and through like multiple data sets, we can get trends for these sort of metrics. And for example, if a player is turning much slower than they normally do, or if you notice like he's not at 100% based on his average trend, you could potentially flag this as, he may be carrying an injury. So in terms of, yeah, athletes, uh, Olympic athletes or sprinters or marathon runners, it's a very different space.
I think FIFA have got to approach you very soon for the next football game, no doubt.
You mean AAFC?
Ah,
Yeah,
that one.
FC 26. Yeah, and I also wanted to ask. So this is, I mean, this is a very interesting industry, and I'd say obviously there's a lot of work going on because you said you do work with the Premier League and Al Saudi, and there's clearly a lot of business out there, but companies in the space aren't as well known. um, I guess around the world. And so, like, how is the competition? Like, how's the competition and the market space in this industry?
So it's a very niche industry. It's not really well known to the public, obviously, because the average person will not ever need to handle this data or need to want that data. Um, but there are definitely competitors. There are more well established, more well known companies out there who do currently provide very similar data, but primarily through the use of GPS. And GPS has limitations in the sense that, one, it's not very accurate the to a centimeter, for example. It's accurate up to a couple meters, maybe, which is still good. But in arenas where you're playing sports indoors, for example, yeah, you're not going to get good, reliable GPS data. Even in some arenas which have massive overhanging roofs, sometimes the direct line of sight through to the satellites is disturbed, and you may not get the best results from that. So this is more of a local position system rather than a global position system.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
What about we said you're doing hockey, right? Not ice hockey
ice hockey.
and not normal hockey. Okay.
Yeah, it's just something we've been currently testing, but that's as far as we've got.
And, I'm also curious as to, so now you talk about, like, obviously they all played well in stadiums. So how many of these lidar monitors do you need? Does it depend on the size of the stadium? How many are focusing on certain points of the pitch or the field or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's it depends totally on the size of the stadium. It depends on the hardware. So some of the lidars could have a 360-degree field of view, so it can cover an entire stadium. The ones we use, the really high resolution ones, are quite limited, but we can use two of those to cover an entire stadium very comfortably, and
Only two.
usually only two. But the we have compressed it such that everything's in one enclosed system. So we've got two lidars and multiple cameras, uh, basically doing the entire data capture. So it's one unit essentially.
Mhm. Okay. And also, just okay, I think you yourself have gone and, like, physically implemented a lot of these, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah. And how is that in terms of the effort to actually, like, implement them in the stadium?
It's not very straightforward. It's you are very dependent on where you are going. So depends on the stadium managers if they've organized like power for you, data, internet. If everything's
Food.
organized and everything, food's very important. If everything's organized, then installation becomes very easy because in that sense you're just going there, putting up your equipment, everything's plug and play, and it's nice. But 90% of the time, it's never that simple. So it's always a different challenge.
Let me ask you, like you yourself, are you enjoying this? Do you enjoy what you do?
I absolutely love it. Like it's one of those things like I never expected myself to be in a space working in both tech and football, two things that I'm really passionate about. Um, so it's really hard for me to think about ever moving away or working in a different space.
In terms of, I guess, how the industry will go forward, how do you see this evolving in terms of the data that's being used, the technologies, any new technologies coming up? Where do you foresee this?
Um, in the industry I'm working in, not entirely sure how much more we can do. Obviously, that's a very vague answer. There's so much
Yeah.
data that can be captured and so many new metrics that can be measured. But if you think about like maybe 10 years ago, like in the space where we didn't have VAR, or more so very recently, we are having automated offsides in European football. Um, I feel like there's a lot of scope for different technologies to be used to aid the referees, to aid a lot of these calls. Offside's a big controversy at the moment. I feel like if you can have a 3D space mapped out for you
Yeah,
very
offside's a joke right
accurately,
now.
if the rules can
Yeah.
be changed slightly to, I guess, favor the attacker, because that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Technology can be very helpful in this, and I'm sure AI can be used in a lot of these calls. I don't know how the football fans feel about this, but
Let's
um,
go, Man United.
it'd be
It's gonna be
very
sad.
interesting
And
to test it all
boo.
out.
Yeah, yeah, no, for
It's
sure. I think there's definitely a lot of progress to be made. Sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I think at one of the sites I went to where we were installed, I saw a iPhone just in an enclosure pointing towards a pitch. I was really curious to what that was, and apparently that's what's used in automated offside gathering. So
What? No way.
it's crazy how such a cheap piece of technology. I say cheap because it's a very consumer product,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and very affordable for businesses. Like how something that simple can gather data like that to give such important calls.
yeah. I mean, no wonder they're refereeing inside a joke in
Yeah,
this
I honestly
Indeed.
I
this
didn't know
sport.
that. Now it makes sense why the Premier League's
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. Now
oh my
it
god,
just all
it's
makes sense
horrible.
now. It's
Just a disclaimer: the automated offside doesn't work in the Premier League at the moment, but
yeah,
who knows if it's
yeah.
going to improve the
No,
refereeing.
man. But I think you've given me, Rajat, and a lot of people out there a lot of information. That's helped us and made us a little bit angry as well. I think at the Premier League generally, but nah, we do appreciate that.
And now to you have any other questions, Rish? Or we go to the
No, I'm
rapid
curious for the
fire?
next part, which you're going to brief
Okay,
us
yeah.
on right now.
Okay, Neil, we have a quick rapid fire set of rapid fire questions
Oof,
to
let's
end
do
the
it.
podcast. Uh, so they're on six, so we'll try and get through them. So the first
Okay.
one is, if you could meet any three people, dead or alive, who would you meet?
Oof. Uh, Shit, this is supposed to be rapid fire. Um, Eden Hazard, really cool guy. Um, Dead or alive. Um, Nelson Mandela,
Wow. Okay,
and I'd go Barack Obama. Seems like a very cool
Wow.
guy,
Oh,
that's
and
nice.
okay.
also
Very
also
interesting.
got very Kenyan roots. So
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
yeah,
Neil,
just a
he's
caveat
from
that
Kenya,
Neil
by the
also
way.
grew up in
Just
Kenya. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Next one is, do you have any movie or series recommendation? Something you have watched recently?
uh Lapata ladies for all the Bollywood fans out there. Something for the Hollywood fans. I watched Fall Guy on a flight very recently, and that was
Ah,
good.
is that Ryan Reynolds?
PG,
Ryan
PG
Gosling.
advised. By
Ryan
the way,
Gosling. Yeah.
PG advised for that. Yeah, just don't want to let your kids watch that.
It's actually that bad.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad, but I wouldn't advise your kids to watch it. Although kids nowadays have a bit, I don't know, they're a bit
To be
awkward.
honest, I don't think there are any parents listening to our podcast.
Never know. Some
um,
of our friends can become parents.
oh yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. There's definitely a few that could be. Anyways, now moving on. A hobby you have outside work, something you like to do.
Ooh, cooking, definitely.
Cooking, nice, nice. What would you say is your signature dish?
My signature dish. That's a tough one, but I would say for all the non-Kenyan viewers, koroga chicken. This is essentially a koroga is a small gathering of group of friends, family, sitting around a pot on hot charcoal, and one guy is stirring it and cooking for everyone. The reason everyone
and how
stands
and
around is
and
because everyone's hungry.
how long does that take you?
Oh, you can cook for like 3-4 hours easily.
Wow, that must be tasting amazing.
Rishi, you
Already
know it
hungry.
well, all too well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The next one is, what's your favorite quote or quote that you have heard that you've really resonated with?
I say worrying is praying for it to actually happen.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
nice. I
I
like
heard
that.
that recently,
Sorry,
and
sorry. Kindly repeat that.
so worrying is praying for what you're worrying for to happen.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
think about it, like Just don't worry. Take it easy.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
If you worry too much, you're kind of manifesting it.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, like what you're saying is a fact. Like our mind is our greatest barrier, right? Like even our thoughts are our greatest challenge, and that's where our anxiety and stress comes from, especially nowadays. You're right.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true.
Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. The next one is crunchy or smooth peanut butter.
Crunchy. Gotta go for the
Ooh.
texture. Texture is
Yeah.
What do
important.
you mean? What do you mean?
No,
How do you spread that on a bread without taking out the bread?
Toast it fast.
Yeah, I'm crunchy as well.
Nice.
Oh,
And
smooth all the way. You do not know what you're talking about.
I can see benefits of smooth, but I like the texture. Crunchy.
You
is
see
good.
them, but you do not acknowledge them. That's what is happening here.
For a smoothie, sure, go for smooth. It's in the name, smooth.
No,
Smoothie.
if you put crunchy in a blender, it becomes smooth. It does not make sense. So either
Depends
way,
how
you're
good
getting
your
smooth.
blender is.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yes, nice. And then the final one is pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Yes.
Uh,
Very controversial. Yes.
Why? You gotta give an
Yes,
explanation.
yes. Why?
Okay. It's one of those things where I don't hate a lot of foods. I eat
Okay.
pretty much. I'm happy with what I'm given, but I never initially I was like pineapple on pizza is strange, weird, but the more I've grown, the more I tend to understand, like, salt and sweet go as well. It's not something I would always go for if I'm going to an Italian restaurant or pizzeria. I'm a proper margarita guy. Simple is always best.
Nice. It's
But
a go-to dish.
yeah, but a Hawaiian pizza is always nice. Ham and pineapple.
But let me tell you something. For all the people out there who keep debating this topic, I don't understand. If you're eating
If
pineapple
you
on pizza, or if you're eating pineapple separately and pizza separately, it's going to end up in the same place, mixed in the same way. It does not make a difference.
you know what, like it's a good point. Like there's no point
Yeah.
arguing over it, but it's just everyone's opinions. To
It
each their
is
own.
what it is.
It is what it is.
is.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Well, that was the end of the rapid fire. Those are some good answers, actually.
Thank you.
Really nice.
Some controversial answers there.
Very
Same like
controversial.
the Premier League decisions, I must say.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have you back on this show in a couple of years to see how far you progress, because I'm sure at the rate at which you're going, it's going to be amazing to see where you're going to reach. It's going to be exciting. I hope you're working with big players. By then, you will tell us the names of the people and clubs you're working with.
You're manifesting it.
Nah, but
Yeah.
I think that honestly, from my side, thank you for joining us, and
Thanks,
I'm sure
man. Thanks
you've
for
given us a lot
having
of
me.
information.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks, Neil.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you guys. Like, subscribe, and as usual, if you have any questions, queries, or worries, by all means, contact us. We will be right here.
And we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Don't worry.
Good day, people.